video diary number 2, and sadly we're leaving Rome, but we're heading down to the Bay of Naples. So we're now at Cumae. Now Cumae is the first Greek colony we visited. It's also the first Greek colony to have been founded in Italy. Founded in the 8th century BC, and the colonists came from the Greek island of Euboea, which is not far from Athens. Now Cumae is credited with the introduction of the alphabet, first of all to the Etruscans and then to the Romans. And it was an incredibly powerful and important centre for many hundreds of years. And in the 6th century, it came into sort of conflict with the Etruscans, not perhaps a surprise, and had a battle with them in 524 BC, which they won on land. The Cumaeans beat the Etruscans. And then in 474 BC, a few years later, with the help of the Syracusans from Sicily, another colony we'll be visiting, they defeated the Etruscans at sea. And I think that really was kind of quite pivotal in the gradual, in the accelerated, shall we say, decline of the importance of the Etruscans. I mean, we tend to think about the Romans in 509 BC, the traditional date for the expulsion of the king and the introduction of the Republic, as an important moment in the seeing off of the Etruscans. I don't think the Romans were big players at that time at all. No, the Cumaeans were much more significant. In the 6th century, Cumae sponsored or supported the founding or development of a colony further around the coast, eastwards into the bay. There was already a settlement there, but they added to that and they developed a new one, and they called it, in fact, New City, which in Greek is Nea Polis, which we now know as Naples. There are no remains here at Cumae that can be identified as part of the original Greek settlement. There are 3 temples, but Roman ones. At the very top there was a temple to Jove, which was converted into a Christian basilica probably around 500 AD. There are 2 other temples, one dedicated to Diana, the other to Apollo. Now Cumae is particularly known as the seat of the Sibyl, a priestess of Apollo, who, once she was worked up into a trance, would reveal the oracles of the god. And perhaps the most famous Sibyl was the one who guided Aeneas to the underworld, as recorded in Virgil's Aeneid, taking him down to see the soul of his father, Anchises. There was another Sibyl who tried to sell the 9 Sibylline books. They're books of prophecies written in Greek hexameters. She tried to sell them to the king of Rome, the last king of Rome, in fact, Tarquin. And he said, "How much?" And she told him the price. And he said, "You what? That's too expensive." So she immediately picked up 3 of the 9 books and threw them in the fire. He was a little bit rattled. She said, "Do you want them now?" "How much?" he said. She said the same price. Again, he went, "No." And she picked up another 3 books and threw them into the fire. And now he was so astonished that he agreed to pay the full price for the remaining 3 books. And that's the story. I'm not sure it's a sales tactic I'd recommend to you all, but nonetheless it worked for her. Now the Sibyls would sit on stone benches in here, chewing the laurel leaves to get themselves into the right mindset, and also breathing in the smell of sulfur from the volcanoes, which I can tell you, it's pretty strong even now. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to deliver any oracles, but I can certainly smell the fumes.
Excisue boi cae latus ingens rupis in antrum, quo latitu contaditu scentu ostia centum underunt totidem voces responsa Sibyllae.
So, we have come to Baiae, and we're at what's left of a magnificent Roman villa. Now, Baiae, the Bay of Baiae, was probably developed as a port for Cumae, which is not far away, in the early days. But by the 1st century BC, it had become a resort for wealthy Romans. There were baths here fed by the naturally warm springs, which would have appealed to the Romans, of course. Now, these springs were fed by the heat from the volcanic activity in the area from the Phlegrean fields. So hot and steamy, yes, but hot and steamy in more senses than one. Because the parties that went on here in the 1st century BC, if we are to believe the sources, were pretty salacious. And take, for instance, the poet Proserpina, who's saying to his girlfriend, he wasn't here, but his girlfriend was apparently, and he's saying, please don't lie on the beach and be distracted by the sexy voice of another man. And the most famous character, I'd say, to come out of the 1st century BC at Baiae is the lady Clodia, who had a house here, and from Cicero's account at least, had open house to all kinds of things that went on. Now, Clodia was the girlfriend of Catullus.
Theirs was a turbulent relationship. It had sweet and delightful moments, as we see here, Lesbia with her sparrow. Oh, Lesbia, by the way, is the name Catullus gives Clodia in his poems. But it all came to a bitter end. Now, Clodia was also involved with a fellow called Caelius.
Well, things went south with them too, as far as we can see, because in the mid-50s BC, Clodia is behind charges against Caelius. Now, Caelius was accused of quite serious crimes, of being involved in the murder of an envoy from Alexandria, and also trying to poison Clodia herself. Now, Caelius is defended by the lawyer Cicero.
Caeli causa est expeditissima, quid enim esset in quose non facile defenderet, Nil jam in ista mulierem dico, sed si esse deliqua dissimilis istius, quae se omnibus pervogaret, quae aberet palam decretum semper aliquem, cuius in ortos domum Baias iure suo libidines omnium comearent, quae etiam aleret adolescentes et parsimoniam patrum suis suntibus sustineret. Si vidua libere proterva petulanter, divus fusse, libidinosa meretricium more viveret. Adulterum ego putarem si quis anc Paulo Liberius salutasset.
Hello everybody, this is Baiae, Parco Archeologico di Baiae, Parco Archeologico dei Campi Flegrei. The fiery fires, they means it's a dangerous, no other places in the world. Maybe Yellowstone, but this is a great caldera. And Baiae in the ancient Roman Empire was dangerous, wonderful. They invented spa. You know spa? Salus per aquam. They mean salus per aquam because when you need to refresh, you go to the shower. Huh? And this is the places. You mean in the 200 years ago, 2000 years ago, they have the opportunity, the hot water. It is incredible have hot water. They love it. Imperator Augusto, Claudio, Nerone, they came here. But Baiae, they say, Seneca in the letter to Lucilia, don't go to Baiae because it's too crowded, dangerous. Cinzia came from Roma. She's lost. Excellent. This is a wonderful history. And here, Campi Flegrei, I come from Pozzuoli, Puteoli. And Cumae was certified the first polis.
We're now in the Bay of Baiae itself. That's Pozzuoli behind me, Puteoli as it was called in Cicero's day. Now, it should be said that for all Cicero's comments about Clodia, he himself had a house in Puteoli, and even closer to Baiae, he had a house, or rather a villa, on the Lucrine Lake. Poor old Clodia, nobody has a good word to say about her. Well, all the words that we have are written by men, or enemies, or embittered lovers.
Not everything about Clodia was negative. Oditamo, says Catullus in one poem, I hate and I love. He had good things to say about her, very loving, when the sun was shining on their relationship. Here's a poem read by Christina Anison Lewis.
Illa mi paresse Dei videtur, illa si face superare divas, quae sedes adversus identitem te spectat et audit dulce ridentem. Miserae quod omnis eripis sessus mihi, nam simultae lesbia spexi, nihile super mi vocis in ore. Linguas et torpet, tenui sub artus flamma demanat, sonitus opte tintinant aures, geminate cuntur lumina nocte.
Well, that was beautifully read by Christina, and the poem, Catullus' poem, very slightly adapted. You probably spotted that. It is extraordinary how many Romans had villas or houses in this area. I mean, I haven't mentioned Virgil himself had a villa just a few miles around the coast towards Naples. Well, that's our long day in Baiae done, and we're now ready to savour the delights that Baiae has to offer for people out and about in the evening. I'm afraid I couldn't get you guys an invite, so it's goodbye from Baiae. Well, good morning, and if you ever feel after a very good night before that the next morning you're at death's door, well, the fact is we're here at Lake Avernus, this volcanic crater which has a circumference of about 2 miles, and in the middle it's 60 meters deep. And if you believe in the ancient myths, well, it's a lot deeper than that, because this is where Aeneas made his entrance to the underworld with the Sibyl when they went down to see the soul of his father. It's also where the singer Orpheus made his descent down to the underworld to try to bring the soul of his wife Eurydice back up to the upper world. And he took his lyre and he sang beautifully, and he persuaded the gods of the underworld to let him take her back, provided he go ahead of her as they leave the underworld, and he does not look round until they're out into the upper air. The part of Eurydice is read by Susanna Lipscomb.
Ipsa cava solans aegrum testudin amorem, te dulcis coniungs, te solo in litore secum, te veniente die, te dei cedente canebat, tainarias etiam fauces, alta ostia ditis, et caligantem nigra formidine lucum ingressus, manisque adiet regemque tremendum, nescia quo manis precabus mansuesque recorda. At cantu commota errabi de sedibus imis umbrae mantenue simulacreque luce carentum, quam multa in folii savium se milia condunt, vesper ubi auti burnus acet de montibus imber. matres atque viri, defunctaque corpora vita magnanimae Rome, pueri nuptaeque puellae, impositique rogis juvenes ante ora parentum, quos circum limus niger, et de formis arundo cocuti, tardaque palus in amabilis unda alligat, et novie stux interfusa coercet. Queen, ipsae stupuere domus, atque intima leti tatara, cae roleosque implexae crinibus anguis Eumenides, tenuitque inhians tria Cerberus ora, atque ixionii, vento rota constitit orbis. Iamque pedem referens casus evaseret omnis, reddita quo rudique superas veniebat ad auras, pone sequens namque hanc dederat Proserpina legem, cum subita incautum dementia capita mantem, ignos genda quidem scirens signoscere manes. Restitit, Eurudicenque suam, iam luce sub ipsa, immemor heu, victusque animi respexit. Ibi omnis effusus labor, atque mitis rupta tyranni foedera, terque frago stagnis auditus avernis. Illa,
Quis et me
inquit,
miserant te perdidit Orpeo? Quis tantus furor? Ein iterum crudelia retro fata vocant, conditque natantia lumina somnus. Iamque vale, veror ingenti circumdata nocte, in valadasque tibi tendes, heu non tua palmas.
dixit, et ex oculis subito, quo fumus in auras commixtus tenuis, fugit diversa, neque illum praesantem, nequiqua umbras, et multo valentem dicere praeteria vidit, nec portitor orci amplius objectam passus transire paludem.